it was never, I was never fully diagnosed or officially diagnosed till it went kind of into a very debilitating state. So originally my OCD was perfectionism. And that meant like I would rewrite letters or reread things like over and over and over again. So they were like, oh, that's not OCD, because I think a lot of people misunderstand what actually OCD actually is. They thought it's about cleaning, which it's not always. And then so when my father passed away, I think it kind of triggered something in me where it was like any sort of anxiety. And then it just became full blown contamination OCD. And and I had never been to therapy before. So I finally got help. And therapy for OCD is not at all talking about your feelings or talking about what's going on. It's actually doing things that you're scared of. So that meant me like rolling on the bathroom floor, touching people's shoes. But we had to take it super seriously. I mean, I took it seriously, but also it was like, this is ridiculous. Like I'm rolling on the floor, but I'm like, this is good for my mental health. So like, I just thought that juxtaposition was like really funny, because you would have other kids and other people at the therapy place too who had either like sexual thoughts OCD or religious OCD. So they had to do all these kind of things that made them scared, but it also seemed absolutely ridiculous. Like there was someone who had social anxiety, and we just had to stare at each other for a minute. And I was like, can we talk? And he was like, I don't know. So we just stared into each other's eyes for a good minute. And then we just like left, like nothing happened. So it's super, I just thought that was really fun. So that's kind of what the movie is about, is kind of giving you an idea of what OCD is actually like, but also kind of giving you the context of like what can trigger it and why. I think there's a lot connected with death and OCD for me. Everyone's different, but a lot of the things that OCD, they're like, a lot of people feel guilty about the thoughts they have, so they feel bad. So I think that had a lot to do with also like my father dying, so like having these thoughts going on in my head, it just made me feel guilty. So I think that's what I had to rectify within myself. That's kind of near the end. That's why you got that excerpt where she kind of finally realizes, oh, I was having these OCD thoughts, these intrusive thoughts. They're not really how I actually felt about my dad.
Yeah.
That's a very long story.
No, we thank you for sharing. And that's just to take your personal story and kind of turn it into and transform it into this piece. A, that's a very brave thing to do, but B, you did it so beautifully and so honestly that the message really shines through in that. And so we thank you for putting yourself into this very vulnerable space. And I personally, I very much appreciate that. There's not enough films that talk about mental health, especially in a positive way, and dealing with mental health in a positive way. Usually it's a caricature or an archetype that's used to kind of serve a plot device. And I think that's not really present in this at all. It's really refreshing, and I appreciate that a lot, especially coming from a minority's perspective as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think, like I mentioned, like OCD is completely misunderstood a lot of times, and even mental health professionals aren't like fully aware of what OCD is. And so, like when it gets represented in film and TV, it's usually just like added as another character trait, like a quirk, to make them funny. But it's like there's nothing funny about OCD at all. It's completely debilitating. And you meet anybody else, and they're like, it's not fun at all. So yeah, that's why I kind of also wanted to. And also, there's a lot of representation of mental health. It's like super dramatic and like super sad, and I just want to be like, if life isn't always like that. And I, like me again, rolling around the ground, I didn't think that was therapy, but for me it was. So like, why not showcase that?
Yeah,
It's,
totally.
it's super weird.
Well, we do have some folks here who I believe were with us for the reading.
Yeah,
We have some
let's open it up to
here.
the actors.
Yeah, if you all would like to turn your cameras on and talk about, what your experience was being in these characters' shoes, your experience in trying to bring forward the emotions that are in this piece, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Or you don't have to if you don't want to. We also open it up.
Becca, come on.
Yeah, we have Becca, who ended up playing the lead act. Oh my gosh, my brain.
Oh, Hannah.
Hannah, thank you. Oh my gosh. All the Zoom bombing kind of messed with my brain. We ended up playing Hannah is with us if you would like to come on and join us, Becca. But otherwise, I'd also like to open it up to the folks that we do have with us, Gabby and Luana, if you all have any thoughts or questions for the writer. It's okay. You don't have
I mean, maybe
Okay,
it's just
I'll
perfect.
put a question for Melissa while y'all think about your thoughts, okay?
that energy.
Yeah. How much of this film was you, and how much was it was a character? Because we know that in screenwriting, in movies, we have to really condense things and send a message. Did you make any? What are the creative choices that you made in basing this off of your life?
You know, it's funny. I sent this off to someone, and they were like, "The character of Hannah is so amazing." I was like, "Well, that's basically me." So what you're getting on screen is basically me. I think, you know, I was just trying to kind of, like I mentioned, like I've always been trying to get kind of humor into a subject matter that's kind of dark and stuff. And I think that's kind of how I always am too. Like I was mentioning, like when I would be in therapy, I would be making jokes and stuff like even like that shit joke where she's like, and I hate shit. It was like that would be something I said. So I did, it's basically it was a lot of me in there. And I think that the more I was more specific and honest about it, then the more it felt real. Because then that's where you get the kind of separation between getting an archetype and caricature and actually a real person. So I was like, you know what, I could put most of everything, and most of the stuff actually, those were like actual conversations I had with my therapist. A lot of it was almost verbatim. I mean, I updated it a little bit to make it a little more entertaining because some of it's kind of blurry, but that's like kind of, and then like the relationship between my therapist and me, we were like really like, honestly, if we hadn't met in therapy, if she wasn't my therapist, I probably would have been friends with her. Like if I met her off the street or something, because we were both like joking with each other and we would like mess with each other. So I try to put as much of that actual like relationship and kind of feelings we had in terms of putting it in the script as well, just because I think that made it more fun. Because I could tell, I knew I was having a lot of fun with my therapist. You know, that sounds weird, but it was a fun relationship. So I wanted to kind of infuse that into the script as well.
I think as long
and
as
everything. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish.
Oh, I was saying, but like a lot of the things, like I had to figure out ways to get because it's hard to get your thoughts onto a very visual medium. So a lot of the things, like I don't necessarily see dirt on my hands, but I'm in my head, I'm imagining everything. So that's a little bit not necessarily true. So that's where I kind of was like, well, what's a way to where I had to kind of get creative and be like, okay, how do I show OCD thoughts? Because it's not something very physical that you can do.
Did you ever consider narration, or did you feel like it was too overused? Was that a choice that you made?
I didn't even think about narration until I think there were a couple of other films and shows that actually did that. I know there's a show called Pure that was on HBO Max a little while back. But she also kind of had people doing stuff. So like I think at one point she had like two old women like kissing, and like instead of like having the narration, she just showed it. So I think there's like a combo. You could do a combo of both. I might actually play with narration actually, just because, yeah, like you mentioned, because I also don't want it to come off too cartoonish, where you're like she like picks up her hand and there's like poop or something on her hand or something. That's ridiculous.
Anxiety from BoJack Horseman, where it was just the whole episode was his
Oh, just him talking.
Yeah, it was just
BoJack Horseman, a lot of animation, just in itself is a medium where you have a lot more space to be creative in the way that you show things and the symbolism of how you show things. The episode about his mother having Alzheimer's, I think, is one of the most fascinating episodes on television. But that being said, we did have a comment from Melissa about the therapy conversations, or the conversation with the therapist, about how, oh, Melissa, if you'd like to come on and join us and tell us about it, that would be.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, hi, Melissa.
Hi. So I just wanted to say, I think the way that you portrayed it visually, the inner thoughts, I thought it was really great, and it really showed the difference between the OCD thoughts and the reality in a way that I haven't seen before. I think we often get the voiceover of the thought and then the reality. So just like, I really loved those visuals. And I also wanted to just comment on how, we saw 3 scenes and I would have loved to have read more of it, because these 3 scenes, the action kept moving forward, and it was in a way that really uh, kept it illuminated something that we don't get to see very often, in a way that wasn't like preachy or like I love how you use the humor to create it, but it also had a tension and a forward drive, and like it built, and I wanted to see what it was building to. So congratulations, it was
Oh,
wonderful.
thank you so much. Yeah, that was my worry, was that I didn't want to be too clinical, because it's not that interesting to hear about like like the actual things that are happening with your mental health. But I think that that's where also I realized that's where the comedy was, where I'd be commenting on things that were sometimes boring and try to make it fun, which is why
I think the comedy really makes that kind of sing. Oh, do you know the show Abnormal?
Yes, but I've only seen like one episode.
One of the things that I like about it is that it explores that autism spectrum, but it's so funny that and um like you connect to the characters even as they're going through something. And this is the same kind of thing where, because of the humor, you connect, you root for her, which I love.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the things, oh, hi, Becca. One of the things that we're talking about is a expression of internal versus external. And Melissa, that was Melissa Skirball. We have Melissa S and Melissa K with us. Melissa S did a wonderful job reading the action lines. And one of the things that stood out to me is the fact that you kind of showed us what was going on in her mind. And I really felt like that was kind of putting us into the mind of this character. And one of the things as we're writing, as you talked about this being a visual medium, we have to figure out ways to get our audiences invested in these characters, and showing the audience what's going on in someone's head, how they're seeing things, how they're perceiving things, is one of the most powerful things that you can do to try to put your audience in place of your main character. Because in all reality, we want them to experience the story as Hannah, as whoever, to try to get them to be more sympathetic to the cause. And at the end of the day, help us make mental health less of a, what's the stigma?
Stigma.
Yes, exactly. We're trying to, I mean, that's not the main goal. We want to have fun while we're doing it. But that's one of the things that we're constantly thinking about, is how do we make our message mean something, also make you have fun, but at the end of the day, make you care about these people. And I think you did a very beautiful job exposing that through your action lines, and the way that you kind of put us into the mind of Hannah through these moments of, rolling, or not rolling on the bathroom, when she's cleaning the bathroom, and after her father has that episode, that moment to me was one of the most powerful. I was like, oh my God. Totally. Becca, you have joined us. Do you have anything that you'd like to say or add?
I thought it was, even though it was only 3 short parts of the story, overall it was so powerful that even as we're going through the read, like I was actually feeling a lot of real emotions and like those run-on thoughts. And I think that maybe people experience it to different degrees in their actual lives, and they might not understand how to deal with it. And so I guess obviously we see it as more of the extreme with OCD. And I think that it's just a reminder that like we really do need to pay attention to our mental health, because it starts out as something that we might not recognize, and then it starts to get more and more out of control the more we push it away and try to think that it's not a problem. So I thought it was extremely powerful in that sense, that like people act like they're normal, they try to pretend like it's not a big deal, and they put on this face for the rest of the world, but inside there's so much going on, and we just need to be aware of the struggles that we're dealing with as well as what other people are dealing with.
Thank you. I think there was like, 'cause I think that so much in therapy was like, you know, what are Melissa's thoughts and what are OCD thoughts? Because we all have like kind of crazy weird things that come in our head. Most people can just be like, that was weird, and then just move on. But people with OCD, it's like we latch onto it and think, oh, that is real. I had this, like, if I thought about this is if I thought about like stabbing someone with a knife or something in my head, like that's like for me, I immediately go, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible person. I want to stab somebody. But in reality, it's just a weird thought that pops in your head. Like I think like everyone has those thoughts. Like we don't want to say that they do, but we all do.
Okay.
Like you never thought about that.
I mean, I don't really want to, exactly. I don't really want to stab anyone. Just FYI, I don't want to stab anybody.
Okay, good.
That's not a Melissa thought.
We've talked a lot about the positive about the script, and there is a lot of positive about the script, and I'd like to stay positive. But one of the things about workshopping pieces is we also want to talk about what can we do to make these pieces stronger. And that's a large part of it, especially since we have this wonderful audience with us, the actors with us. So let's talk about what are the things that didn't work in the script? What can we do to make them stronger, and so on and so forth? Does anyone want to?
Any thoughts? Luana, maybe a thought? You're here. Gabby?
Well,
No.
I just like to talk for a second about the therapy conversations, because while I do really enjoy the character of the therapist, I did find a little bit of it very clinical. And to me, the character that we met at the beginning of the sequences was the same woman that we met at the end of these sequences, you know, when she's talking to Hannah and her mother and trying to kind of break down these barriers, how she feels about her father. One of the things that, you know, we were talking about a few minutes ago was this battle or internal versus external. And I think you do a beautiful job with Hannah in showing that. But I really just wish that that was present for the therapist as well, even though she is this, you know, clinician, even though she is this person who's supposed to be kind of almost not cold, but just, you know, she's a doctor. Doctors are supposed to be doctors. I do think that in film and in cinema and in television, there are some great therapists who are very human, and our therapists are human. And I think that that's very important to kind of showcase as well.
Right. I agree, because that's when I'm actually thinking about doing another draft, I'm thinking about her arc, because yes, I just focused on myself. But yeah, but like I mentioned, like I had a really great relationship with my therapist, and like kind of, I guess because I didn't want to make up just like a struggle she was dealing with, but then it's just really just fully developing her as a character. That's what I need to do, because yes, I agree. She just feels like, hey, I'm here to help, and then I like leave, and then I come back and help. And but yeah, I agree. I agree.
There are people that are very much like that. I will help you as much as I can, but at the end of the day, I get exhausted. If someone needs help, I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. Homegirl, I don't know if I could be in that conversation. I would be so upset with her and be like, why are you thinking this way? I'm sorry, that's just me. Anyway.
No, that's actually true, because sometimes I would have that conversation. Like I could tell sometimes she would be annoyed with me. Like, oh, I have to deal with her anxiety again. It's like, yeah, sorry, that's your job. but it's like she's a human being. Like she gets annoyed and she gets frustrated. Because like there were a lot of things that I would not do. I would just be like, no, I'm not doing it. Yeah. She's like, I don't know how to get you to do this. So like she is that person.
Was one of it was when we talk about the hazmat suit that comes across later in the piece, is that a full-on hazmat suit, or was that kind of just like a
oh no, it was just like, it would be me like trying to cover every part of my body with like some piece of clothing. So it was just my makeshift hazmat suit. If I had one, I think I actually, you know, it's funny because my therapist would be like, you can't live in a bubble forever. I'm like, I would love that. So like, I would love a hazmat suit. Oh no, I'm good though. I would not be where I am right now if I was in a hazmat suit, if I went into my compulsions. I'm sure you're all wondering actually how I did during the pandemic.
I mean, you don't have to get into it, but how are you doing during the pandemic?
I was actually weirdly okay. I didn't like I think because I was already at that anxiety level, like 100, like years and months before that. So to me, I was like, oh, this is normal because everyone, and it's kind of nice because everyone's washing their hands more and like I'm more aware of like being gross. So I think I actually was like, this is working out well for me. But
Okay.
actually, I try not to like do too much in terms of like, you know, my therapist was like, just do the CDC guidelines. Do not wash your hands more than whatever 20 seconds. That's it. I was like, okay, fine. But I think I handled. I think also because I was in the middle of therapy right when it actually happened, so I was forced to do things that I wasn't willing to do prior because a lot of the things that were triggering for me were actually in my house. So I had to do all these exposures in my house because I wasn't willing to do them when I was in therapy. Like she'd be like, "Here, your homework is to do this," and I'd be like, "I didn't do it." Like now she'd be like, I'm here. I kind of have to. She'd be like, you can take the computer into the bathroom with me. I was like, oh, I'm good. I'll do it. I promise.
Oh my goodness. Ginger, you don't have to put your hand, you could just jump on in.
I didn't want to be rude and interrupt. I wanted
no,
to
you can
know
interrupt me.
what was going on. There's some thoughts here. I want to go back to Keelan's note on the therapy sessions.
Yeah.
And I know that they are from your experiences, but when we think about, as we go into your drafts, and as I'm sure you are working on, we're going to think about how it would look like on screen, like how it would look like in production. When someone's watching that visual, like where's the tension within that scene of therapist and patient? And you know, all you have is two people in a room, really. It's like where how can we make that something that people are going to watch on a big screen, a phone screen? We're not going to big screens right now. That would be my note, is to think about how those scenes could, like Keelan said, advance Hannah's character.
That's okay. I keep calling. So I'll be like Hannah's character, but I'm like, it's really just me.
Yeah. Like what are the things in that? Yeah.
No, actually that's something because I am making the short proof of concept, so I am thinking about that because there is that one scene where she's talking about her dad, and they're just sitting there, and how do I give it movement? That's a huge part of it, and I think a lot of it will. That's a lot of things I've actually been thinking about. So yes, thank you for bringing that up too, because it's super important. I have a question for people if they want, or
yeah, we have about 7 minutes left, but I do go ahead, ask your question, but I just want to be mindful of the time you have left.
Sure. I was actually curious if the connection between her father's death and her OCD was connected, at least in some way. That for her in order for her to get past her biggest fear was actually to confront her guilt with her dad. That was kind of like my biggest thing. Because I don't know if it's always, no one's in my head, so it's not always obvious when I do that.
I got it. I thought
Okay.
kissing the grave, that was there. The conversations, that was there. I think you did have in the whole script that you sent us, you had a flashback scene. And did we?
Oh yeah, there's flashback scene that one, so yeah.
Yeah, we know. For me, I was like, yeah, we know.
Okay. I get both, so I'm like, I don't know if it be more specific, less specific.
Does anyone? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Becca, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I think it was obvious. I think that maybe because we had a short amount of the story, what I was missing is what her relationship with her father was before that, to know how much it really affected her when it got to that point.
Right. Yeah, that gets trickled in throughout the entire script, so there's a little bit more of that kind of storyline as well.
And then the same thing with the mom. Like, at what point the mom really saw her struggling? I think because we didn't get to read the whole story, that like those thoughts were in my head, like what her relationship with her mom has been throughout this entire journey.
Right. Yeah, it's I was like, I'll bring my mom in and you'll meet her. That's basically Lily. Everyone's basically the same person. I didn't really have to do that much.
Well, I think one of the things that can be done to try to, you're talking about moving the story along. And one of the things, especially in comedy, I think that's really helpful is exaggerating real life, pushing it to the point of absurdity and kind of like those moments where you were talking about, you know, the dirt's not really on my hand, but I need to show you the dirt on my hand so you understand what's going on.
Right.
I think that some of that can be extended to your characters as well, and some of these situations, and just by pushing the boundary to the most extreme. I'm not saying
No, I know what you mean.
script, but as an exercise.
You want me to stab someone in the script?
Yeah, please don't stab me. I really don't want you to stab anybody. Don't go to jail. But seriously, I do think that by, you know, thinking about what's the most extreme reaction or what's the most extreme angle that I can go from to push this scene forward, and using that as kind of as a jumping off point for the way that the scene continues on. One of the things that I really loved about the mother character is how, and maybe it's just the way that Mamie portrayed it, but the strong silence of it when Hannah was talking to the therapist, just the look on Mamie's face was just, I was like, incredible. Like, sometimes your characters don't need to say something to get the feeling across or to get their thoughts across. I really I appreciated that the energy of that screen or of that scene. And I would also say play with your characters and how they interact with each other. How many people are in the scene, how many people are talking, and how many people are not talking, and what are they doing, those that are not talking. So there's some food for thought. Does anyone else have anything?
I'm eating it up. What I was gonna say, like, all the characters are dealing with anxiety in some way. So with the mother character, she's dealing with her husband's death. So like, but she doesn't want to talk about her feelings too much because feels like she's overwhelming Hannah.
And you came in and joined us. Hi. Do you have anything that you would like to add about the script or the scenes?
I do. I'm going to send it in a private message because I know we're going low on time, but I just wanted to let people know, especially those that are joining us via the live stream on the Periscope channel. We do have a ton of people, apparently. I'm just getting messages. Apparently, I'm the only person here who can be messaged. But we're getting a ton, I don't know what's going on, but we're getting a ton of people in the waiting room. But because there was some Zoom bombing at the beginning, nobody's getting let in now. So everybody's been asked to join on the Periscope channel, which they are, which means there's probably a lot more writer feedback for you, Melissa.
Okay.
So this is just for the live stream. I just want to let everybody know that you can email your feedback from Melissa as well to Keeland and Ginger at unfinishedworks@film-lab.org. That's all.
Thank you.
Our outro for us, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please email us, and we'll go ahead and we'll anonymize anyone who sends feedback to us to make sure that it's as fair, I guess. It'll be a very honest, but don't do anything mean. But I don't think anyone will. But we will anonymize stuff before it goes through, so your information will be taken off, and we'll be able to get that amazing feedback to Melissa.
There we
Ginger,
go.
Last thoughts?
No, thank you all for being here. That's all I've got. I'm happy you guys are here.
Yes, thank you all for coming. Thank you to Melissa for providing this amazing work. I'd just like to give a brief shout out to the writers, Becca Jong, Soraya Butler, there we go, Mamie Kimura, Roy Koshi, Kimberly David, Melissa Skirble, who did the action lines. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. Thank you to Jen from the Film Lab. And thank you all who are sitting at home spending your Friday evening with us. We hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. And that concludes our last workshop for the time being.
Oh my gosh, it does. I'm so sad.
That?
No, it's our last one.
You saved the best for last.
We did save the best for last. Yes, I love Melissa, your energy. You're just like, it's me. I'm amazing.
Like, it's Hannah. That's Hannah, basically. So yeah, imagine me in therapy.
Well, we thank you. Thank you for your time, and we thank you for your piece.
Thank you guys so much.